In Genesis 3, after the fall and God has cursed the serpent, then to the woman, he says, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. You will bear children in pain. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. To Adam, he said, because you have listened to your wife's voice and have eaten from the tree about which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it, the ground is cursed for your sake. Snake. You will eat from it with much labor all the days of your life. And so what we have is this weird comparison, right, of pain and labor. Like, why in the world does God give woman pain in labor and man just, a lot of labor in his work? Like, what is this? Why is there this discrepancy between things? I've kind of wondered that myself. I haven't been sure. And so then I watched a Bible Project video, and they pointed out that these two words, pain and labor here, are the same word. And if you go over into Logos and you look at the Lexham English Bible, well, yeah, it's literally the same word, but we translate one as pain and the other one as like toil. And that's weird because our English translation is actually hiding an important fact from us. Because it's not that God curses woman with one particular problem and man with a different one. He actually curses them with the same problem, which is that your ability to produce or reproduce is now in jeopardy. It's actually going to be difficult or problematic. And then what we see through the rest of Genesis and a lot of the rest of the Bible is that there are women who are having trouble having children. And you see that there are a lot of famines and that men are having trouble producing and taking care of their children, of their families, right? So we've got this dual problem of now that we are cursed, humanity cannot do the thing that it was supposed to do initially. We're struggling with this. It's now problems. And it's just weird to me that we have these two words that are the exact same, but then in our English translations, we translate them completely differently. And the Bible Project video goes on and says, yeah, we shouldn't be doing this. This is actually showing us a broader theological idea of we have to rely on God to provide for us now, which I think is really, really an important thing to say. But there are the real questions of like, okay, but why in the world did people translate these words, same words, differently? Why did they do it so differently in our English translations? And my guess is, and this is just a guess, I wasn't part of the translation crews, is that there's some observational things that we've made, which is like, if you go outside and look at my chickens and they lay an egg, they just kind of like brood there for a moment and then they pop up and they're like, hey, I laid an egg. And that's very different from my wife, who's gone and delivered multiple children so far. And yeah, that's just a totally different experience. And so I think that there might be some experiential things where people have made observations and said, well, that seems a lot harder, so that's there. Also, as, depressing as work can be sometimes, is difficult and challenging, it's not quite the same as birth, right? They're kind of different animals. And so I think that people might be trying to translate that way, but it is weird because the word is the same. All right. I also think that there's probably something about our modern medical approach to birth, where it seems to be more optimized for doctors than for the women doing the birth. That might be a big part of this as well. If you are a woman who is facing a pregnancy and you're like, I'm kind of scared about this, my wife really liked the childbirth without fear. She found this book very insightful and helpful. So I don't know, I'll commend that to you on recommendation of my wife. I haven't read it, nor have I given birth, but I've been there for the birth. So that's something. I at least have been there, seen the thing. Okay. As I've been thinking about this more, I'm not tied to this idea at all, but I've also found it interesting that Jesus kind of is different from the normal approach in both of these areas, both in finances and production, as well as birth, right? Because his mom was overshadowed by the Holy Spirit. And so it was kind of a different process. Now, I'm not saying that the Bible suggests that Mary didn't have pain in birth. I don't think that that's the case at all. But it's just interesting that's different at that point, right? That the birth thing, it's kind of different there. And then also with Jesus and his ministry, although I believe that he grew up learning his father's trade, but I believe in his ministry, right? He is being funded largely by, wealthy women and other people who are taking care of him through this. So he's kind of got a different way. And I'm also not suggesting that you should all go into a ministry where you are on support. I don't think that that's necessarily the right way to go about it all the time. I certainly am not in that place right now. Maybe someday I'll get there. I think there's something kind of cool about that. But even there, where people have said, hey, I'm raising support, they say it's actually kind of a challenge to do it because you kind of have to swallow your pride. You have to go over that. So that's all interesting to me as I've been thinking about this more. But definitely go check out that Bible Project video that explains how these words are the same and goes into it a little bit more. I had never seen that before. Had you? Did you know that these two words are actually the same word? Tell me in the comments what you think about this and how you've thought about this in the past and what your current thoughts are. I think this is super fascinating. Thanks for joining.